I like the idea of like, what are the consequences if we don't? Consequences may be too strong a word. What's the result if we are unable to do this? Then we need to start making some choices.
Yes.
I like the explanation of the 1%, like a day in the life of that 1%. Most of it goes away.
Yep.
So that illustration that we get, 6.7 of 1%? Mm-hmm. So not a lot.
Not a lot.
So of your $10,000, we get $60 or something like that.
600?
A little more, 600.
$600. I don't know, one of those zeros. But I do think that is really illustrative of the margins that we're working on. And then the other idea that the reserve, to your point about the reserves are great, but they also, growing reserves means growing deferred maintenance. Mm-hmm. And there are a number of things that we haven't done that we should have been doing, like keeping a street sign visible, mm-hmm. That if we had done it along the way, it would have been spending some money. We wouldn't have built the reserves as much, but I think then it's like before you move, you fix up your house so that it looks great, and you're like, why didn't I do this while I was living here? Because then I could enjoy it. Yes. Those are the types of things that we should be doing along the way so that the residents all enjoy the fruits of their taxes. So I think that telling that story is, hey, we've deferred a lot of things. We need to do them. That's why we have a large reserve. We're going to be doing them, and we are. That's hence the list that we just went over.
Correct.
We got here because inflation is craziness. I mean, if you filled up your gas tank, I think that's a pretty obvious, pretty easy story. And if we don't do this, here's what's going to happen. We have the vast majority of our expenses is salaries and, some other stuff. But
well, and on top of that, yes, salaries are a big part of that. But when you compare us to surrounding cities, by number of staff, what we pay staff, we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of all of that.
Summarizing that into a couple sentences, like, hey,
yes,
we have a large percentage of our staff, but also our turnover is high in part, not in whole, but in part because attracting and maintaining and attracting talent is difficult if you pay under market.
Yes.
And everyone should understand that. That's just a fact.
Right.
Like, you have to get the special person who, according to our survey, those 90% who just love living here and working here, which is great, but you are not in a target-rich environment. So, you have to find the right people, and that takes time. You could say, like, we've had vacancies for X number of time. And all of these are supported by the data that we have experienced. So I like the idea of kind of like what is it used for, because that helps people contextualize what they're paying for, not specifically, but just as a general concept of like, here's the things that this buys you. It buys you these types of services. And I would just ask for my fellow council members, like, the reason why I wanted to have this session is it's really, the question that I have is like, do you have enough information to talk to your constituents like right now? And could you pitch this based on what you know right now?
Mine?
And
No.
Yeah, and if you can't,
Can't.
if you
I
cannot,
can't.
then I think it would be beneficial to get all of us to the point where we could.
Okay. I want to get back to one point that the city manager made relative to and it's all centered around the reserves. We've already authorized to spend it down to 40%.
No.
No? Then what's the 40%?
We have
Explain
set a
that to me.
policy that the minimum reserve to maintain is 40%.
Okay.
There is no authorization of spending.
Okay. In his little talk, and I'm not trying to, target you, but I want a clarification. The reserves were going to be using them.
A portion.
But he also said they're going to go down to zero. I don't think this council would let it go down to zero. If they did, we have a real problem.
I think it was the
would not.
tautology that if we continue to deficit spend,
Oh, no, I understand that.
then
Yeah, no, I got that.
logically it would go. That's the point.
You and I and here and this people in this room understand that. But John Q. and Mrs. Public out there, they don't know that.
Well, that's what we want to convey.
That's why we're discussing it now. And I think that's why you brought it up and put it on the agenda.
It is. And
I can't sell it, to be honest with you.
So I want to have us, I mean, obviously, we're kind of on the spot because there was no substance to the agenda item. So obviously take time to think about it, but think about it really quick. And if you can't do it right now, which is okay, in your individual conversations, communicate to staff what you would need to feel comfortable so that when this comes before us at the next time, we've addressed all of those things and you will get them. If you do not ask for it, you won't get it. So that's fair, I think. So.
One of the things that when people talk to me about it, that I use, and I think we ought to put it in our newsletter, is a comparison with cities around us that our sales tax is less.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
And we need to bring it up to where it is, where everybody else pays. Because Clayton people are paying it now anyway. The only store they can go to is Safeway, but if they want to buy clothes, they want to buy this, they want to buy that, they're paying the extra tax. And we're just making it equal. I think that's really important that we're behind on that.
Yeah, we have a chart to include in the newsletter.
So when people ask me, I tell them that because they don't realize that.
Yeah.
And another thing that's hard for people to understand is everybody wants a tax. And one of the things that I got back just the other day, and I didn't even know this till I checked with the county, is that they're asking for a tax to go over 10%, which they have to get the legislature to approve. And that tax is to offset the Medicare and medical.
Isn't that in June?
Yeah, and that's to offset the medical and stuff that the federal government took away, and I can understand that. But what I don't understand is they each spent $1 million on their pet projects, and that money came from the reserve fund. So people are asking, you're spending $5 million in reserve, and you're asking the taxpayers to pay for this tax.
Wait, is that a different jurisdiction, though?
It is, but I'm just saying, people think about taxes and they become suspicious. And their question is, what's Clayton spending it on? So when people ask me, I tell them about our taxes behind, and we're losing revenue, and I said, if you don't believe me, check our budget. We lost $500,000 this year in revenue that we're never going to get again. $500,000. And it's going to keep on going down because we need money to replace it. And it's easy for me to explain that to people. They understand. They understand that. You can't make it too complicated. And I think you're on the right track there. But I think they need to see the comparison, other cities' tax and ours. I mean, that does it right there.
And talking to Councilmember Trupiano today, if you want to go get a cup of coffee and Joe's is closed downtown, you've got two choices, Pete's, Starbucks. Does anybody make a decision to go to Starbucks because there's a 1% tax break? No. You just go to where you enjoy that cup of coffee. And so sharing that information, sharing those kind of anecdotes of when you go to Chipotle to get a burrito, you don't notice the extra 1% when you buy your lunch.
No. I don't get enough in my burrito.
Well, and the other thing that we talked about today, too, you just reminded me, was I know that HDL came back with a reconfirmed assessment.
Was that recent?
It was in his city manager's report. And we talked about not just preserving that whole 1%. It was automotive sales, and what was the other thing that you mentioned today?
The biggest area that we're going to see growth in is online sales.
Online sales.
So your Amazons, your TikTok shop, and all of those things, Chewy, that's where, and we just got a report that showed growth for Clayton in that area. So that 1%, as we see that growth become
Can we map that? like, is that disclosable information? Growth or like sources?
So we do have sources, yeah, and we do have a disclosable list from HDL.
Yeah, they give us some stuff that I think is
Right.
fit for public consumption.
Yeah, it's like the top 25
Yeah.
And
tax
we were one of the few cities.
But not in order. Yeah.
We were one of the few cities in the county that was showing growth.
Positive, yeah.
In the
on that,
online
yeah.
sector.
Yeah.
Yeah,
online
and,
sales.
and so it communicates to folks, hey, it doesn't impact a lot of your behavior, and we're going to be able to capture things that really just help the city in its very incremental. I don't know. I think if you incorporate the things, that would be really helpful. So that's
Well,
why I wanted this
yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, and with online, that tax goes into the pool. We get a little piece of it right now. With the 1%, you get that full 1% plus the pool.
Yeah, so right now they're already paying it, except we get a very small portion of that tax. When I go to, my retailer of choice and make a purchase, I see the tax, but it doesn't go to the city. A tiniest sliver. And if you illustrate not only that property tax component, but if you also illustrate the base rate on the sales tax as well, because of the base rate, was it 7.75? I think is the
Current tax rate.
something like that, or 7.25 or 7.75. I don't remember. The portion that comes to Clayton is actually quite small.
Yeah. And it's
But-
a pro rata basis by population.
Yeah.
So
But if you add in 1%, we get 100% of the 1%. It would likely exceed the amount we get from all other taxes as well.
it almost equals what we're getting now from
Yes.
the sales tax, from
Exactly.
the regular SUT.
Because we get all of it. And I
Yes.
think that you could think of a better way to communicate that.
Yeah.
But that's an idea that I do not think is very, it's not in the zeitgeist. Like it's not widely known,
And nothing like a good pie chart or some good visuals.
Yes.
I mean, really.
Well, I think we can go back and maybe to see if this helps. I mean, we've talked about different revenue sources, kind of the 3 or 4 major ones. And then to put this in there as a comparison so that it's one of the pie slices, if you will. I mean, to show the impact of it compared to property tax.
Even if you approach 800,000, I mean, that's going to represent 8% or more.
Oh.
No, 12% or more
12.
of our
About
budget.
12. Yeah.
Versus the existing sales tax, like the 7% is also right in there. So
Right in there.
I think illustrating that this small portion would get dedicated to the city only, versus the regular sales tax goes to all county sources, right? Yeah. So
I just want to mention another tool you have at your disposal, and not to go into it too deeply, but you do have direct argument in support of the measure that you get to publish inside of the voter guide, and really to be able to lay this out. You don't have the word limit. You have a word limit, but it is much larger than the word limit about what the ballot measure actually says. And that could become a really powerful tool for summarizing some of these thoughts. So
I don't think we've designated who's going to write that.
you have not. I think we would bring that when it would be another decision point when you get the language to think about who would author the direct argument in support of, and then who would write the rebuttal for anybody that might put up an argument against. And those become really key messaging opportunities in that regard.
Yep, I agree.
Well, thank you for bringing this forward. This was great. It was kind of the discussion we had today. I'm like, I want to be able to get out there and sell it and wrap my head around it. And
Other things that we want to share with staff?
Public comment too?
I'm not there yet.
The only other thing I can, just to reiterate in the newsletter too, is if you can, and I think you already said you might be doing this, is the deferred list, some of the items that includes.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be good too.
And then really stressing that the LMD is sunsetting and going away and what that means.
Like
what happens-
$1.2 million.
And what happens with that
Four.
funding, and we have no other source for that. So in both things, the reason why we need both of these to pass. Okay.
Okay, public comment?
No, I have one more question for my council members. So
I went to public comment.
I can do it when we come back.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm messing with you. Come on.
Okay, so I know that Councilmember Diaz said that his segment of the community is not sold on this Do you need any other bullet points to help sell them on it? Because
Yeah, a police or public safety sales tax as opposed to a sales tax in general.
so I don't think we're doing that. So barring us doing that, what else could we do?
That's it. Very simple. When we talk, it's very simple.
Use
Your
microphone.
mic's not on.
And I think, so Mala, if we were to do a public safety one, that's a specific, like that's a special tax. It's no longer a general tax anymore.
That's correct.
I appreciate, though, what the council member is trying to stress is that we have, I mean, it would help alleviate taking the general fund money for the police department, but
Well, what it would do, I mean, money's fungible. So what it would do is you'd funnel it one way and then you would decrement the other way and you would do the exact same result, but then you would need to get a greater voter threshold to pass it.
that's what I was going to say, yes. So I just, before we left, I'm just curious if Councilmember Diaz himself is okay with the general tax.
Councilmember
Are you
Diaz.
okay with the general tax, or are you fine with it?
I'm
Your
not
microphone-
committing
your
one
mic-
way or the other. I'm not committing one way or the other at this time.
It's not up for vote now.
No, it
Right.
isn't. I'm just saying, in
I'm
order
not-
for you
I'm-
to be
I'm
able,
not committing right now.
I understand.
How many times do I have to say it?
I don't want your vote. I'm trying to understand how to help you swallow it more.
I told you how.
Okay.
Make it a
Okay,
public
say less.
safety tax. The people that I talk to, because they're part of that 94% that love the police department during the Cloven survey. That's bottom line.
Let me comment on that.
Please.
I'd like to comment on that. I understand where he's coming from on a police tax, and I've seen cities do that, but that's because of unresponsive councils. And people get fed up when the council is not responsive to the police department. But that really hurts the city by doing that. Even though they get more money in their budget, that public safety tax then becomes something of itself that has to be voted on. And who does that voting? I don't think it's the council. Is it the council? I thought it was a special commission that did that. So the council would have to do that. And it could cause all kinds of issues, but we're not at that point here. We're not at that point. I mean, it takes 66 and 2/3 vote. You'd get 90 here if we put that on there. You get 90. But that's not the way to go right now.
I think one of the other cautionary tales of using, especially a sales tax for something that's super important to the community, is that what we do know about sales tax revenue is it does this. And if you're going to bank your priority for your community on revenues that are going to do this, that's a risk. You're either going to have to go back and backfill when you're in the dip, and that's going to cost something else, perhaps greater. And so it's always a tough trade-off to do that when you're dedicating specific funds for that general purpose, which public safety is still a general purpose, when you have that kind of ebb and flow with tax revenues, especially with sales tax.
And I would say, like, I think that those types of things are really useful in certain circumstances. If our police weren't getting the support that they needed and the public said, hey, I really want to support our law enforcement, so we need to give them a dedicated funding source, I think that would be appropriate. But, for us and the community, I've always taken, don't bet on this, but I've always taken the position, if the police ask for something, then I want to give it to them. So I don't think we need the dedicated funding source, because all they have to do is ask, and we'll try to support them in any way we can. So that's kind of like my thinking on it. Plus, it gives you a lower pass threshold, so strategically, it could be easier. And as the accountant, the less administrative burden for less value, because once you have a dedicated purpose, now you need to have the audit. Now you need to track all the stuff, and you need to do it differently. But at the end of the day, you will likely end up at the exact same spot, because what you will do is, if you get $100 in a public safety tax, you're going to give the police $100 in specific funds, and then you're going to take away $100 in general funds, and they will be exactly the same, but now the accountants have to do more work. And I don't know if that's the most effective way to go. So that's kind of like how I think about it, but, you know, everyone can make their own assessment.
Right, and I think the answer will be at the ballot box.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's my sideways saying that the chief just needs to ask, and if he does, then he gets what he wants. So, okay. Anyone else have any questions for staff or feedback for staff? If not, public comment. Feel free, please. You've been very patient.
Thank you. Council, I just want to say, based off this last conversation and my personal experience, I am for raising taxes because when I can understand that the tax is going to paying for the services that the city provides. So I live in Clayton. I appreciate the services that are provided here in Clayton. When I can actually understand what those services are, I have no issue paying an increased tax. I believe that as you were saying, that costs will continue to go up because inflation is going up. I get paid more in my salary every year through raises because things just cost more money. So I am okay with paying this tax. I can say that right now I would not pay for a specific tax that would go directly to the police department. No offense, Chief. That right now does not make sense to me, especially when because the money coming out of the general fund means that the council votes on what we're buying, and the people then can hold the council responsible for the decisions that they make. I think it's easier that way for the people to then decide who they want to represent them in the council based off the decisions that they're making, rather than money just going to a specific thing and it's kind of a black box. Thank you.
Well, you know, you can be an acolyte and go to the people and prolesticize. So if you want, just saying. All right, any other public comment? Closing public comment. I think that you've been given enough information. Good to go. All right. So with that, that is the last item, and the next is adjournment. It is 9:22. Oh, for this meeting, Clayton community member Sheila Driscoll recently passed, and I wanted to close this meeting in her honor. I don't know if you want to say a few words about Sheila.
Just a few. We may all want to say a few words. She was just such a sweet, wonderful woman. I got to know her through the Clayton Valley Village. She was the one member at every fundraiser that bought every gift basket, I mean, she was just a very generous, sweet person. She served on our Council on Aging as our Clayton representative until she passed. And she was just a really sweet lady. I did go to her celebration of life and memorial service at St. Bonaventure, and people were laughing, people were crying. There were wonderful stories about her. She just, and I'm sorry that I didn't think about closing it in her honor in our last meeting. So I wanted to make sure we did that tonight.
Thank you.
I would concur. Sheila, she was a force. She seemed super meek and quiet, and as soon as you listened to her, she was witty and quick, like cut you to the quick, but in a funny way. She had a great sense of humor, and I met her through the CBCA, and really enjoyed the friendship that we had when I met her in 2016 is when I met her, so about 10 years ago. And she was a very special lady, so she will be missed.
I concur with both council members. I knew her through CBCA, but my wife knew her through the Clayton Valley Women's Club. And she was very active in there. And my wife and her worked on various projects together. And I know my wife truly misses her.
Okay, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:25. Thank you.